right. And we are back for another episode. Welcome to our podcast, Am I Doing This Wrong? I'm one of your hosts, with an S on the end, singular S. There's two of us. Yeah, I'm one of your hosts, Ryann, and I'm here with my wonderful best friend and podcast partner.
Well, I'm the lucky one today because I'm with the birthday girl. Happy birthday, Ryann.
Yay!
Woo! Cheers.
Yeah.
Whoa! In the background.
But yes.
Yay! It's not going to be your birthday when this comes out, but
it will still be my birthday.
Yeah. Write it out. Love that.
Yeah, we can celebrate again, No, this will be a while, but
I know this is going to come out on like my birthday. We're going to get all the happy birthdays.
I know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So happy birthday to Morgan as well, whenever this publishes. But no, yeah, I know, but it's exciting. It's exciting. I am another year older. I'm 29 today. And yeah, it's exciting. It feels a little weird, not going to lie, just because I'm so close to a milestone, that this birthday feels just kind of like, okay, like let's wait till next year, then it'll hit me. Then I'll be crying or whatever. Hopefully we'll be on like our, 200th episode or something crazy. I don't know. But yeah, let's put some good vibes out there for the future, some good premonitions, like on this day in 2022, we will be, on Patreon.
Having your birthday. That's a guarantee.
Yeah, I know. It'll be my birthday again. There you go.
On this day next year.
Love that.
Oh my gosh. Well, how's it going so far? How's your birthday been?
Yeah, it's been, honestly, my birthday is just like my life. It's been too busy. Things didn't go as planned. I had an argument with my husband, but that's pretty much like every other day. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's been a good day. It's honestly, it just started a lot. It started really nice and slow, and and I had things to do, but then after that it kind of just picked up really quickly, and I never really got to catch my breath. But I was excited because I was already prepared for the episode today, and I was just like, this is something that I actually wanted to do on my birthday day. I'm not really particular about the birthday day being like everything is amazing, it needs to be perfect. I'm more so like the things that I do to celebrate it should be fun, right? So like I'll have family coming in, some of them are already here, and a lot of them will be here over the weekend. So yeah, I feel good in general, but as far as me in my life, like generally, I feel like I'm in a good place. There's a lot of things going and there's a lot of things happening, but I do genuinely feel like I'm moving towards what I want my life to look like. So you really can't ask for more than that. Unless you want like a new car or something, but
Yeah, you can ask for that.
Not in this economy. I just want to say that to sound like a really old person. That's what old people say, right? Not in this economy. But
yeah, like a real curmudgeon.
Yeah.
Definitely a year older.
Yeah. Right, yeah, exactly. Smile lines, keeping them at bay,
Oh, I'm trying to get rid of them.
Yeah,
I'm ready to Botox. My next Botox appointment. Need to get that down.
Yeah, I know.
I'm behind the game already, though. I should have been getting it like 5 years ago, but here I am with my frown lines and my crow's feet. So.
Yeah, smile today. It's my birthday. Okay.
I can't. I don't. Can't believe you asked that kind of damage.
Yeah, Morgan doesn't smile on command, but that's okay. We're gonna get through it. But it actually reminds me of our days when we used to live together, and you were a smiler sometimes. You had your days where you were cheery.
Few and far between, maybe.
Yeah.
No, I love to laugh, but I'm very cynical. Ryann and I were talking about this the other day. Oh, I did want to tell you though, because Ryann and I, for some reason, in the past few months, have been talking a lot about MLMs, pyramid schemes, and cults. This has been an ongoing conversation, and I told her the other day we were talking, and I was like, I don't think I could ever be sucked into a cult. You know, I'd probably get 95% the way there, but I'm just too cynical. And so I just wanted to let her know, and now you guys, that I happened to listen to one of my favorite podcasts, a Patreon episode they were doing, Small Town Murder, if anyone wants to check it out. But they were doing a Patreon episode on the Lula Rich documentary that's out about LuLaRoe. Basically, it's an MLM. It was pretty interesting. But after listening, I just was like checking myself left and right. I was like, oh, you dumb bitch. You spoke too soon. And so my foot is fully in my mouth because I am now backtracking. So I ordered this book that will hopefully be here this week. It's called Cultish. So I'm going to do some investigating. I'm going to figure out if I'm an idiot and I could totally get sucked in. And so
I mean, okay, so this is the thing. I feel like anybody could get pulled into that, and this will be another podcast episode. I do feel like anybody, it really just depends on what they prey on, right? Like, what are they searching for that you can connect with? Is it community? Is it an abandonment issue? Do you not have a father figure, right? Like, there are reasons why different types of people got pulled in. Now, I will say it is a little tougher nowadays because information is so readily accessible on the internet that I don't really need to go to this like all-knowing person that like can like, get me on like the emotional level or whatever it is that I bond with, right?
Right.
But I will say that I think I could lead a cult.
Whoa.
I do think I could lead a cult. I feel like and that's not like a brag. That's like unfortunately, I think people are a lot easier to read than we think we are. Yeah. And so I think that, I just think I could lead some people, maybe into some, a situation. I wouldn't want to lead them into anything bad.
Well, let's not test your theory. I'm testing my theory because mine is safe. Let's not have you lead people into anything.
No, I'm just going to lead them to our podcast. That's it.
Oh, that's good. Well,
you got daddy issues? Listen to our podcast.
We have the answers. Come on over. Well, no, and they said that, they're like, 90% of what these people are doing isn't detrimental. These aren't necessarily bad things, but when you think about an MLM, a pyramid scheme, or a cult, there is that it turns, and there is that aspect where it could lead to financial ruin. You get sucked into something and then you lose your house, you lose your car or whatever. Or, on the cult side, you lose your sense of self. You, again, probably financial ruin. There might be other weird aspects, whatever the cult, is following, so on and so forth. So I was kind of looking at the things that I'm interested in and the things that I follow and, where am I on that spectrum? I'm trying to figure it out. So I'm going to do the research. I'll check back in once I've read that book and see where I stand. Okay. But
I mean, I also think that my first boyfriend was also
he's like my point of reference.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he was very convincing, and I was like, I'm there with you, but you aren't my boyfriend. We aren't fucking. So like, I don't have like that, additional connection. With you, but he
thankfully
absolutely we probably wouldn't be friends or having this podcast oh wait, did I breathe?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we probably wouldn't be friends anymore doing this podcast if that were the case. So I think
that's true.
Work
out. Exactly. Thankfully we stopped fucking, and then I was like, there's no like dick cloud anymore. It's no just dick cloud. Just you being a weird person.
Yeah.
I don't want it anymore.
He did live with us for a time when we were living together.
That's true.
So I hope we get to talk about that a little, because I love to complain. I do. Can't wait.
Yes, he was what we would call an unannounced roommate, right? Or like an unchosen.
An intruder? A squatter?
Hey! Okay, I'll go with squatter. I won't go with intruder.
No, intruder.
Invited in. He wasn't. He's not like a vampire.
Right. You have to invite them in. Oh, he was like a vampire. Then they have to be invited in.
Oh, that's a good point.
That's your life force. I think we found, yes. Okay. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. I also sucked his life force a few times, but we won't get into that. But that's not the point of this episode. But that is a wonderful segue into what our conversation is going to be today, which is about roommates. So this was nostalgic for me. I really enjoyed kind of like going through some research, but also just like comparing it to my own experience. I will say that for most topics, we are not experts, we are not doctors or anything of the sort.
Most topics, I would say.
Hey. No, not all, because today I do feel like we have a little bit of expertise on the roommate arena.
Okay.
Only because we've been in so many different situations together, separate, different countries, different states. We've been through different types of roommates, right? College life, after college, we've had roommates. And we've kind of been through the myriad situations that you will have roommates, right? And so for me, I feel like first off, I want to start with a question as far as like, do you feel like you live with roommates? Because I did look up the actual definition for roommates, which was actually more interesting than I thought it would be. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I will start off with, do you live with roommates right now, Morgan, currently?
Why are you doing this to me?
Oh!
Confession time. I do have roommates. It's my parents.
Yeah, that's roommate. Hey, that's fine. Look here. We gotta say something.
I'm at a transitional place in my life.
Right.
And I'm very fortunate to have parents that have given me room to do that.
Yeah, to be a mate. You're welcome.
Yeah, my mom makes dinner, which is great. I mean, we take turns, to be fair. I've got to help them with their business, which has been interesting to see, like, the ins and outs of all that. And yes, like I said, I'm very fortunate, very appreciative. Yeah. But I guess you would consider them roommates. We're all adults.
Yeah, exactly. Well, see, and that's the thing, right? Like, I will get into the definition of roommates, but the reason I bring it up was not to put you on the spot, although every episode is going to put us on the spot. Yeah, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I did just admit to basically dating a vampire cult leader. So you are also on the spot on this episode as well. But no, the reason I ask is because so we have been very fortunate in the sense that we have families that we can move in with. And yes, they may be our parents. After college, after my undergrad, and then also after my master's program and during, I lived with my parents multiple times after college. So it was not this like linear, progression of like, oh, I live with my parents and then I leave and now I live on my own. And then my husband, like, no, like, we've had to go back and forth and figure it out. And I want to start this episode with, realizing that those were very awesome situations to have, because thankfully, when we did have wild times with our roommates, we did have somewhere to go after and we did have other options. So I wanted to start.
And I think that's really applicable to our generation, because that whole kind of thought process of, okay, you're 18, you move out and then you never come back. That's just not what our generation can do. It's really fucking expensive. Buying a house, like doing all that is just not as feasible. And so, yeah, I don't feel bad.
Right. No, exactly. No.
And like you said, we're fortunate to be able to have a space to go back to as far as parents go.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I think that whole line of thinking just isn't as, it's not as applicable for our generation, like I said.
Right. Yeah. Right. No, exactly. But I will say, I live with my husband, my partner. That's the same person. I don't have two. And then my dogs do live here. Yeah. Well, in the future, you never know. Hey, we're never say never. Okay. We are a monogamous couple now, but we are open to things. Okay. I'm not putting out a call, but just saying we're open to things.
And her number is.
Yeah, I know. But my dogs live rent-free. They're roommates. They're like the shittiest kind of roommates. Literally shit. Like I have to pick up their shit. But anyway, being, the reason I thought that this was interesting was because when I looked up the actual Wikipedia definition for roommate, it describes a person with whom one shares a living facility, such as a room or dormitory. Okay. Except when being family or romantically involved. So those are both of our situations, which I thought was very interesting. Yeah, so I looked into it a little bit more. And my question was kind of, why is it not a roommate if it's family or partner? Like, right? Like, where is the line drawn for this term that we use so often? And so I found something a little bit interesting because this website, or I'm sorry, this article on thelantern.com, it's called Romantic Roommates, How to Live with a Partner, right? And so it says that although platonic roommates have rooms of their own, linked by a communal no man's land, which is kind of just like the communal area, you and your partner or family will live in a truly shared space where every room belongs to both of you. So that's kind of the distinction, right? And it makes sense. Like, if you think about it, like, even you saying that your mom was knocking on your door, right? Like, that's because technically if she needed your space, she could use it for something, right? Whereas if this was just a roommate that you met, you're like, you better not set foot in my room, and I might have a lock on the door. You know what I mean? It's just a different, because you don't have the same trust level. You also don't have the same relationship, right? Obviously, me and my partner literally almost share literally everything. He literally wants to share my toothbrush, which I'm like, can I just have something? I mean, I don't knock it, because actually a lot of people share toothbrushes, like family.
I knock it. I don't like that. But I don't want
like, that's actually
anything.
Not that. Well, oh, well,
I'm selfish.
That's a different story. No. Yeah, so I really don't mind sharing things. It depends. Now I kind of want to talk about, now that we have established, like what an actual roommate is, right? The difference between living with family, although they sometimes feel like roommates, I do think that the shared space of it all, whether it's like a communal space for actual roommates versus sharing literally every room of the house and meals and, things like that, resources, that's a little bit more family or intimate relationship based. So what we want to focus on a little bit more is the actual roommates, the nitty gritty of living with folks that are either, maybe just friends that you met, people that you work with, or, if you're in college, right, dorm life, and or moving out to apartments after, and living with other people in kind of the same place in their life, right? Like the same stage in their life, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So first, I kind of just want to talk about, what makes a good roommate versus a bad roommate, right? Because I do feel like, and we'll get to the question of, are we doing it wrong? But I do feel like there is a difference between, the quote unquote good roommate and like what good roommates do or take care of versus, like the roommates from hell, where you feel like you're just like, when is our lease up? Because I got to get out of here. And so first I'll talk about what I found. One of the articles that I found on apartmentguide.com is 13 items you absolutely must include in a roommate agreement. Okay. And so this was a characteristic of what a good roommate is, right? Whatever that means. And there's many different types of, roommates that people decide whether they're good or bad, right?
Yeah.
So this is really interesting because a roommate agreement, like, first of all, I just feel like you already have a lease, like you already have to like figure out the lease and like sign papers and get co-signers if you're too young or don't have the credit. I was just like thinking about that, like the fact that you go through everything with, a lease and renters and renters insurance and all those things. And the fact that, whoever wrote this article, was like, this is what a good roommate does. They have a roommate agreement. So you like have to agree to be a good roommate. And apparently
it makes sense. Like anyone who's had a roommate, like, it's annoying living with other people. But if you were the person presenting your roommate agreement, you'd seem like a real dick, It's kind of like a double-edged sword. Like really type A, you're like, do I want to live with this like anal retentive person? It makes sense. I get it. I'm just saying, being the one to present that, kind of seems like you're going to be annoying to live with.
Right. So that's the thing, right? Like, is this a quote unquote good roommate, right? Somebody that has like down to a T, like exactly what you need to do so that we can agree that this is like good roommate standards. That's like, could actually end up being the bad roommate, right? Like you could actually end up being the person that is way too on top of things. Like you're like, you know, you have like schedules everywhere and like you have, I just imagine this person putting Post-its on everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like conditioner, like mine, like this is Lisa's and like this is mine and like this blah blah blah. And honestly, I understand it to a certain extent, right? Like I was going through like what should be in this rental agreement, or roommate agreement, I guess. It's not the rental agreement.
Yeah.
So first of all, it's supposedly a legally binding contract. It's supposed to be like, we sign this, and if you do not follow the terms or you do something outside of the terms, like you could take like legal action, right? So
God, I bet
first
you
of
there's
all,
like a Judge Judy on this. Like he agreed to take out the trash every Tuesday, but he's not. It's there on Wednesday. It's still full. Like I'm sure.
no, exactly. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what I was thinking. Like the only type of people that would even have time to like follow up on this are obviously rich and don't have a job, or like, you know what I mean? Like you don't like, how do you have the time to make sure that your roommate is doing all these things? That seems like a full-time job. Like making sure like, did you, you know, fulfill clause A of, you know, like the third page.
In section
like,
2.5C, we clearly specified.
Exactly. No, yeah. So some of the things that were included of the 13 items that you absolutely must include, even the name, like, oh gosh, relax, Lisa. Her name is Lisa. I know it. I didn't even look at who wrote this, but Lisa wrote this fucking contract. But anyway, so some of the things were totally understandable, like rent price, agreeing that we will pay this set price, right? Which should be in your rental agreement, but maybe not, you know, maybe like somebody is subleasing or something like that.
Or maybe
also
someone has the bigger room.
Right. Yeah. Someone
Maybe
might have
you're
the bigger
not splitting
room.
it 50-50. Maybe
Right.
something like
Right.
that I could see, you know. You
Okay,
get the master
right, yeah.
bedroom.
And then also, yeah, so splitting bills was also on there. So
Mhm.
like, you know, water, trash, depending on where you live, making sure that electric, Wi-Fi, right, making sure that everything was split evenly, moving out early. So I actually thought that this one was kind of interesting because I do think that it's unfortunate when, you know, like if somebody wants to break a lease, well, hopefully you know what that entails, right? Because a lot of times you end up having to pay more, and it usually just makes more fiscal sense to just stay the rest of the lease, right?
Mhm.
But you can't really predict that, so I don't really know. They didn't really go in depth about like what to include on that part, but I do understand why someone would want to include that, especially if you're talking about like college roommates or something like that, you know.
Right.
If you move out early, are you going to find a subleaser, or, you know, things like that.
Right.
Also the security deposit, I will say that's always kind of tough because you don't know how clean the house is going to be at the end. Like you don't really know. I feel like security deposits are kind of a joke. Like, am I really going to get this back? Probably not.
Just accept it and move on.
Right, exactly. Except that money is gone.
They're still going to keep some portion of the money. So you spending money on like a cleaning service or replacing like fixtures and things like that. It's like, no, you know,
just fucking move out. Okay. Landlords are
$600 back.
Yeah. Fuck landlords. Just move out. Okay. Take your things and move out. But anyway, yeah. So there was another one on the list about schedule conflicts. So this is really just type A, like you need to get fucked because you have way too much time on your hands writing this rental agreement. But like schedule conflicts, like literally in the article, it talks about how, you know, a quote unquote good roommate should, you know, give their schedule ahead of time so that there's no like conflicting times. Like, right. Like if I really like to listen to music in the morning, but you log on to like work from home, like we need to like make sure that there's like a symbiotic relationship, right? That like your music isn't interfering with my work from home schedule, right? Which I'm just like, in reality, schedules are just so fluctuating. I don't know. Maybe that's just mine. I live day to day. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but I just feel like, and usually with roommates, you don't know what's going to happen, right? It's kind of like trying to plan for the unexpected, but like it's kind of impossible, right? Like there's a certain type of person that would try to plan for that. In reality,
right.
you kind of just have to go with the flow.
I don't think we would be roommates. I don't think either of us would be roommates with that person. But
no,
I think
we wouldn't.
Even more so now with like the pandemic and everything. I mean, everyone's home. Like people are really like on top of each other everywhere.
Right.
And also on the reverse, you know, at my previous apartment, every morning on like Saturday, the neighbor, we didn't have any kind of agreement at all. And she insisted on playing Adele so loud at 7 a.m. So loud. I was like, are you okay? Also, I'm trying to sleep, but like very odd choice, very specific choice. And yeah, we had no agreement whatsoever. So
yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah, she wasn't asking me about my schedule.
That's true. Yeah. You actually don't need an agreement with your roommate. You need it with your neighbors.
Right. Yeah. Let's talk to them.
Yeah. Because obviously, yeah, there's some schedule conflicts there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I thought that was interesting. The last one that I thought was noteworthy was guests, right? So what is your policy on guests? Which again, this is like something that, again, I think should be talked about explicitly. And I do think that like if you're subleasing or like for instance, if like we want someone to live in like our basement, that is something that needs to be talked about. But we'd be more like the landlord in that situation, right? Like they'd be renting a space from us. So otherwise, guests are really like, if we pay and we agree to pay a certain amount to have our own space, I don't really think you get to say what I do with that space. I'm not saying you can't be respectful. I'm just saying that seems like something that could be easily breached. Like, okay, what if I break up with my boyfriend and then I want to have like a one night stand? Does he replace the one night stand, or is that not a part of the contract?
Are you trying to have them both over at the same time? What are you trying to do?
I mean, probably. You know me, Morgan.
I'd probably say yes to that then.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But when you and I lived together, we had to share a room. So your boyfriend and the guest situation was a lot different because I basically moved to the couch for a couple of months because squatter, again, vampire, was there. Oh yeah, I told you I like to complain. I'm coming for Ryann right now. But in those instances, and I have had that in, you know, like similar situations, and and you know, but on the flip side, like, you know, I've been single, you know, most of my 20s and all of that. So I've also felt weird about having people over because if I'm having someone over, it's not someone that I know. You know what I mean? If I met someone at a bar and want to have a one night stand, then I'm thinking, okay, you know, I'm putting someone else's home, or I'm putting, or I guess at risk. That sounds dramatic, but in this sense, I'm thinking about the other person that I'm living with because this isn't someone we know. This is a stranger. Right. And even though I'm making this choice for myself, I am thinking about that other person in that sense.
Right. Well, and that's, I mean, it also depends on the stage in your life, right? Like, I do think that this roommate agreement is probably for people that maybe are a little bit more mature in their life. They want to just make sure that if they are living with a roommate, maybe like, say, like in your 30s or something like that, that you're not as young, right? Like if when we were in college, and I'm not saying it's okay, you can totally put me on blast. I was a bad roommate. I wrote that in here. But I'm willing to admit it. That's fine. But I think if we were to become roommates, like in our adult life, it would be very different, right? Because we know what to expect. We've had experiences that were less than savory, that we didn't really want. And so guests would be a topic. Now, me just being like the free spirit that I am, I really don't care. Like the more the merrier, bring them over. Like, sure.
Right. I was going to say, I think if we were to be roommates again in our lives, we are really similar in the way we think about a lot of things. So, you know, I mean, although we have lived together and there were things that, you know, that bothered me, and I'm sure there are things about me that bothered you.
Oh yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Oh, okay, good. So, but I admit that I'm like, I know I like things a certain way. So, you know, my goal is to be on my own. But again, like financially, a lot of factors come into that. It's tough out there. So
no, it is, yeah. So moral of the story, it's hard out there for a pimp. No, but yes, I will say that I think it was silly to read, but at the same time, I'm like, you know what? if you're going to live with somebody that you don't know, you better be prepared for somebody that could be this way, right? You could have the complete opposite that has no rules or standards, wants to bring in anyone at any time, wants to eat your food at any time, wants to do anything. Or, you know, it could just be, there's a spectrum of roommates, right? And so you could end up landing with somebody that has an agreement waiting for you after you sign your lease. But then I wanted to kind of get into the traits of a bad roommate, right? So things that I think some go without saying, some I thought were very interesting. Okay, so pretty obvious. Being loud or partying, not cleaning was very popular. I found a bunch of articles about horror stories from, you know, roommates not cleaning. Different sleep schedules. A lot of people that I was finding like on like Reddit threads were talking about the sleep schedules actually just really kind of conflicting with the way that they were able to like communicate. Because if they weren't around at the same time, they never really resolved a lot of issues. And so that ended up actually causing most of their issues is just the communication.
Yeah.
Which goes for all relationships really.
Right.
Stealing or borrowing, right? So that was a big one. Look at Morgan. If you're watching on YouTube, you see Morgan's face.
I know.
She's
you made
so
that
ready.
Joke about like the Post-it note on the conditioner. I was like, well, don't use my conditioner. Buy your own like hair products. What are you talking about? That's not acceptable. But okay, yes, okay. I'm a little anal in those senses. But Ryann, I'm gonna put you on blast right now. When
you don't have to preface it.
When her squatter boyfriend was living with us, it was like using my towel, my bathroom towel. That is like an invasion of my personal being. I don't think I'm so crazy in that sense. She's
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I want you to admit that was not okay.
Well, okay, so I will say this. In terms of being a bad roommate, okay, I will say I was bad for letting my boyfriend stay there longer than he should have. Now, his habits, I cannot account for. I don't think, because I don't care about those things. You know that, Morgan. I don't care about using the same towels. I probably used your towel. So I don't care about those things. I do know that you were weird about it, so I never really used your towel.
I don't think that's weird. I think you knew how I felt about it.
Okay. From my perspective, I'm saying that's not weird for me. So that's not something that I think is wrong because I just don't care about those things. But I do know you very well. So I would not do that to you. And so, no. So this is me on record saying that I apologize for my fucking crazy fucking ex. Okay. Trust me. I had to apologize to my mom and everyone else in my family. So I will apologize to the list as well.
No, it's just weird to share a towel with a basical, that's not a word, but basically a stranger to me. Not, he was obviously around, you know, but I'm just saying.
No, fair. No, exactly. I agree. And that is something.
I'm not mad at you for dating him. That was an experience that you went through and we all went through. Like I said, he was very cult leader-ish. I was very sucked in as well. I just wasn't getting dicked down like she was. So there was a line in the sand for me, you know?
Yeah.
So
it's a big line. It was a very large line.
I know. And it was that towel. I was like, you're what? I was like, there's one towel in that bathroom and he just took a shower. I know I'm not a fucking idiot. I could put the pieces together. Using my towel. I don't like that.
And you are completely entitled to that, which I think would go along the lines of like stealing or borrowing, and then there were some others that on the list of as far as like not being a great roommate or being a bad roommate, generally not getting along. Also, issues with guests. So this would fall under that. Disagreement over bills. So I think this is something that happens to people that are, I don't know, because this is the thing, like we are all going to use resources at different times, right? Like for instance, when my ex was there, right, like he did offer to pay sometimes, like, right, like he would give us some money and stuff, but we had another roommate that lived with us at the time and they also had guests over quite often, but they never paid anything, right? And so I think like that's the thing, right? Like there were things about all of the roommates in that situation that were less than desirable, right? Like I know now that I would never do that. Like I would never have somebody that doesn't live there using all the resources, either way, whether they wanted to pay for them or not, the point is that you don't live here, right? Like the point is that we all did not come into this
You weren't on the
rental
roommate agreement.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. And so the last one was just lack of respect, which I think is all those things kind of, right? But it is
what
important.
it feels like. That's what, you know, like your boyfriend using the towel. Yeah, I think that's gross, but because you know me, and by the way, we were in college, so it's not like we had guest towels. This wasn't like, oh, Morgan, just use your other towel. It was like, Morgan doesn't have another towel. So the only towel in the bathroom is the only one she uses. And it only gets washed on whatever wash day when we had to go to the fucking laundromat. So anyway.
No, but that's very true.
But yeah, it was more like, okay, Ryan's my friend. We live together. He's using my towel. She knows I don't like that. And yet it's happening. So that feels disrespectful to me.
Right.
You know, so yes, I get that. I think it's all like a culmination of disrespect.
Yeah, no, it is.
And the disrespect.
Right. And the last one was privacy, which, yeah, exactly. Like sharing a room, right, with someone else is a completely different type of roommate relationship, right? There's no area that's just yours, right? Which again, right, like for the time, like we didn't really have a choice, right? Like that was what we had to do. Like we couldn't afford it. Exactly. Even when we lived in our own apartment with just us two, like we were still sharing a 1-bedroom, and that was all we could afford in the area that we were living. And so it just becomes like there's a lot of things that you wouldn't think of being an issue if you had more space, right? Like if we just literally had more space, a lot of those things just wouldn't have happened the same, right? And I'm not saying on, you know, my ex's like perspective, I'm just saying in a perspective of like me being my own person and having room to have someone over versus literally not that, right? But that was something that me as the roommate, I should have considered more of, right? And that would have fallen into the bad roommate. So, but we'll get there. We're not there yet. But just on that same note, kind of thinking about, you know, what are the expectations of roommates, right? Like, I do want to ask this to you, Morgan. Like, what do you think now that we've had experiences with different roommates, good and bad, all in between, friends, colleagues, people that you just knew in college and after, what do you think expectations are? Like just a few expectations for like a roommate, not a good or bad, right? Because good or bad, that's kind of like, like you don't have to be good or bad. What is just like some expectations of just being a roommate? Like, and I have some examples if you would like me to start it off.
I mean, I guess like stay out of my stuff, even if you are my friend, unless you're like checking in with me. Like, oh, can I borrow that top? You know, it's kind of like a sister. Even if Ryann and I were living together, I'm like, you know, if she just walked in the kitchen and I'm in there, she's like in my, you know, my shit. I'm like, dude, that's not cool. But I guess, yeah. So some sense of privacy, some sense of cleanliness.
Yeah.
Especially if we do have shared space, like the kitchen or bathrooms.
Yeah.
So
this is the thing, right? I think it also depends on your experience prior to this, right? Like
that's true. Yeah, I'm going off of previous experience, so it's hard to have expectations that are just like, you know,
set, right? Yeah.
Set, yeah.
So I think also it depends on the type of family that you grew up with, or if you did grow up with your family, right? Like if you have grown up in a big family and you actually lived together in that house, you will know that you don't really have privacy. You don't really have things to yourself. All those things are just communal, right? Everything is communal. Your clothes, like your bags, like everything, the food, bathroom products, all those things are pretty much communal. Everyone uses them and we'll replace it when we replace it, right? But if you grew up in a smaller family with maybe only 2 or 3 siblings, or maybe just yourself or 1 or 2 siblings, you get to have a lot more autonomy or like control over the things that are yours. And that just goes for anything. Yeah. Like I'll even remember like growing up in a big family and eating, right? Like we just had big plates of food and then you just took a little bit for yourself. Right. And then like, if you wanted more, my dad would like make more, or somebody would make more or something. Right. Even like the way that we eat, like Creole food, right? Like it's gumbo or it's something like it's in a big pot and then everybody
Family
takes some of it.
style, yeah.
Very family style, right? Versus a lot of people don't eat that way. They make individual plates for everybody and then everybody eats their own plate. And if you want more, you go get you more, right? So for me, I definitely grew up much more family style, which is why like something like the towel, that's what I'm saying. It's funny that that was your example because literally when we were at the dinner table, we did not have napkins. We had the family towel that everyone used. Like we just like had a towel. My dad had like a damp towel. And if we were dirty, like we just like wiped our hands and then we like wiped our face and everybody shared that towel. Like, so that's what I'm saying. I understand for you, that was obviously not the case for your family. So that doesn't raise flags for me. Like, that's why I was explaining. It really just depends on your upbringing.
I don't think I'm OCD. I know I'm not. I know that's a compulsion and that's a real thing people deal with, but I'm probably very close when it comes to like germs and other people's germs, you know, like,
oh yeah,
I don't know like their cleanliness habits. So I agree.
Fair enough.
This is my thing. I'm calling myself out. I'm saying, I know it might be a lot. Maybe Ryann was right when she said it's weird, but I think that's part of it too. You know, like when you're telling me like family towel, I'm just like cringing on the inside, but I know, okay, that's my like weirdness that I have. So
yeah, just cultural. That's all.
No, because my mom is like, you're so weird about stuff. And I'm like, you know, okay. She's like, I know you don't like that. But so she's saying, she's like, I don't know where this came from. Like your little like, you know, idiosyncrasies where you have to do things a certain way. You don't like when people do this or that or whatever,
right.
You know, in particular to like germs and like what we're talking about here. And so I'm saying that's probably just me. A lot of revelations on this episode, but
right. But that's the thing. I think that's why I started off with like the bad versus good, because the reality is that we're all a little bit of a mix of both, right? Like I know I used up way too many of your bobby pins, like way too many. I was also, but I think back to like that time in my life and I was figuring out how to do my hair and I wasn't comfortable with my curly hair yet. And I was like trying to figure out other ways to do it.
And you were a barista. You had to put your hair up. Like,
that's true too.
Requirement. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So there were just a lot of things that, again, me being a young person that's still trying to figure things out, I'm not really versed on like how to be a respectful human being in other people's spaces, because I never really had my own space. I was always just like the young kid with all my older sisters or siblings, whoever was around, and I was just kind of subject to whatever was left, and not to say I had scraps, like we had a very comfortable life, but I'm just saying whatever was there was like, oh yeah, that could be used for Ryann, or oh yeah, we could do that. So I'm glad we talked about this, because I think I think a lot of times people are scared to acknowledge the fact that they may have been wrong a lot of times. And I know I was wrong a lot of the times. And so a lot of the time, wrong at that sentence, but I can acknowledge that and be okay with that, because I am human and like I'm still growing and I'm still not the best roommate. I still need to, remind myself that I need to like clean just as much as Ben, or every night when he cooks, I still need to remember like, oh right, he cooked like the last 3 nights, like I should, cook, even if he offers, right? Because that's his personality. And so so I just want everyone to know that you're not above it, right? Like that, you just always have room to grow and be better at things, and it doesn't have to be you're the bad friend or you're the bad roommate. You can be a mix of both, just as long as you're honest about it. And I feel like that's the most important thing, is just be honest about it. Like maybe you don't want to live with roommates, right? Like most people would probably prefer not necessarily live on their own, but they would probably prefer to maybe live with someone else. And sometimes you're just in the situation and you just have to kind of stick it out,
Right.
And so before we move on to like the kind of fun part that we're going to end on, I do want to, ask you one more time, is there any other pros and cons of roommates that you would like to, touch on? Or was there anything else while I was saying that last kind of wrap up of this subject that resonated with you?
I feel like you're trying to get me to admit something. So what is it? I know I'm not the easiest to live with. Look at me. I'm like, don't touch my towel. No. Like, I know I'm annoying. Like, ideally, I should probably live on my own, because I know I like things a certain way, and that's not saying I'm not, here to be like, I'm that person making the checklist. I'm not. I'm pretty easygoing. There are just certain things that I do and don't like that I've learned after having lots of roommates in different living situations, that now that I'm a little bit older, I know I like things a certain way. And so I'm not going to put all that annoying behavior on someone else who's just trying to live their life and split the rent, you know? So if I can figure it out.
Right. So do you think that, so are you one of those people that you think you would actually be better off living alone? Like, I wasn't trying to put you on the spot. I was just asking, like, where do you think you fall in that? Because I think I'm okay with living with roommates. I do think now I'm at a point in my life where now I have a partner and I don't really want anybody else in it, but I understand that situations change and we could be financially like desperate and we'd have to, right? That could happen. Like, things change all the time. But I do want to know.
Choose. Yes, I would. I think, and I'm also at a point in my life where I, you know, my success and my like financial freedom, like it is a goal to be able to, I don't necessarily want to buy a house or like a condo. That's not really, you know, I'm not really like a put down roots kind of person, but you know, to have freedom in that way is something that I am working towards now. So in that aspect, I think my next move, ideally in a perfect world, I would be on my own somewhere of my choosing. But like you said, stuff happens, you know, if I'm still with my parents in a year and I'm like, I need to get the fuck out of here and love them, but can't handle this, you know, cohabitation anymore.
Right. I mean, no.
Oh, okay. You know, then I might, you know, find a roommate and do something that'll not be that next, you know, 5 steps ahead. Maybe that'll just be 2 steps in what I'm trying to accomplish. But yeah.
Well, yeah, I do think I'm more open to roommates just because I have less requirements about things and I don't really care. But that does not mean that that's a good thing, because it could weigh on the other person, which is obviously what usually happens. So I think I'm more open to it just because I don't have requirements, but that could also backfire, and it has backfired in the recent past, where I was like, oh, no worries, like move in, do this, do that, and then I was like, wait, don't do that. But I made clear because I'm just so easygoing, but that doesn't always work out. When people say that, like, oh, I'm just an easygoing person, yeah, but that also means that you don't always think things through. Like, I've been in this situation many a times in my life where I'm like, oh yeah, like no worries, but then it happens and I'm like, well, I just know that about myself, and so I'm learning. So I think just being open to roommates doesn't just make it like but yeah, I say all that to say that just because I'm okay with having roommates, that probably means that I shouldn't have roommates. That doesn't just make me, you know, well suited for roommates. That just means I probably shouldn't have them. And maybe
I'm not saying no roommates, but I'm just, you know, if I could have my ideal situation. But who knows, man? Who fucking knows?
But who knows? Exactly. But anyway, so let's go on ahead. I do want to wrap this up with some kind of fun stories that I found, a little bit of horror stories about like just like crazy, awful roommates. And it wasn't always just like, oh, my roommate didn't clean or something like that. Some of these were like really random and just like, that would be awful, and yet it's not the worst thing out there. So one of the first stories I found, I did just go straight to Reddit. I don't really use Reddit. I totally don't understand it. I think that's where the dark web is. I don't know.
I don't either. I'm not, you know, if I try and go on there for a question or something, I really can't navigate it very well. So it's
it's the dark web. We're just gonna name it. It's the dark web. Okay. So I went on the dark web and I found some stories. Okay, so the first story was about a roommate in college who lived with a person who listened to an audiobook of Harry Potter book 1 every single night. And they didn't continue listening to the book, so it's not like they finished it. They literally would start the audiobook over every single night. So
Oh no.
So the roommate would only hear like the first 30 to 45 minutes of the same exact book every single night, and like had like parts of the book memorized. And so they suggested to their roommate, like, can you get headphones or like something? And they said no, like that they hurt their ears and they didn't want to do that. So so not only would they listen to the same book, but apparently they found out later that their roommate wasn't even a fan of Harry Potter. It was just like, for whatever reason, that was like a free audiobook that they were gifted. So that like even more so upset their roommate, because they were just like, so not only did I have to listen to the same part of Harry Potter every single night, but you're not even a fan of the books. Like, you just like needed something to fall asleep. Like, why couldn't it have been just like waves crashing or like
white noise,
ocean sounds? Right. Yeah. So I thought that was real funny. It's not like your typical, oh, they didn't clean, oh, you know, they used my towel.
Yeah. It
was more like, you just did something that was super random and like annoyed me every single night, and you're the worst.
That well, I seem like a real bitch this episode. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm not that hard to live with. I promise.
No.
I'm 30 and I know what I like. Okay. I'm just trying to put that out there.
She likes fresh towels, y'all.
She does like a fresh towel, and so do you. Fucking admit it.
Yes. But no, I'm the bad roommate. It was clear that I was the bad roommate. Nobody's gonna think that it was you.
No, but that just reminded me of when you used to like rub your nose in the middle of the night.
Oh,
it's the loudest. See? Like, it's not just like Ryann would like itch her nose, like, oh, boop, got a little itch. No, it was like this crazy sound. Her whole hand was like up against her face, and her legs were like swinging back and forth in the air. It was like a full body motion, and it was very jarring. It was like legs back and forth, like it was so loud. It would wake me up, and it was a lot. Okay, it was a lot. Has Ben seen this? I'm sure he has, but
she describes me. It's like The Exorcist in here. I'm like floating on the bed. No, I don't do that. Well, so first of all, I've gotten a handle of my allergies. So what she's describing is just my allergies, but I did have them really bad, and I didn't know what to do. And if I drank it all and like fell asleep for whatever reason, I have like an allergic reaction to beer sometimes. It was just a whole mess. It was a lot.
Drinking kind of makes you congested anyway. I feel like after drinking the next day, you do feel kind of stuffed up.
That is true.
But I mean, yeah, we were in college still, so she wasn't taking her Claritins. She was drinking. Probably bad combination, but oh my god, if I could describe this sound, I wish I had a video or something we could put in right now.
I don't. I don't.
That's fair. That's fair.
But no, you know what? It was. Yeah, I'll leave you with that.
Yeah.
Okay, but on to story number 2. This one was kind of crazy. A roommate fell asleep making a frozen pizza and burned down all of their roommates' belongings and property. They fell asleep drunk, and they burned down all of their roommates' property. And apparently it was one of those situations where like the person that was drunk and fell asleep, their things didn't burn because that was their side of the house. I know. And so this was one of those things where it was like, you literally did the worst type of thing, right? Like, it would have been different if it was just like you like burned down part of the kitchen or something. You literally ruined your roommate's entire life. Yeah. And now you get to like move out of this apartment. Like, well, I'm going to get a moving truck for all my things. Oh, I think Morgan's frozen. Okay. But yeah, this is like, I'm going to go get a moving truck. Oh, am I back?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go get a moving truck for all of my things. Sorry, you have ashes. Like,
you need a dumpster for yours to sweep them up.
Yeah. I know. So that was kind of horrible. Most of the stories, I will say, I did make a note of this, were about overbearing parents being way too involved. Which that was kind of annoying. I didn't want to write any of those because they were just kind of like super annoying. Like, you need to just like be an adult. Like, even if you're in college, like, I understand, like, yeah, your parents can help you, but you're an adult now. So you need to just like kind of take care of your own business now. So yeah, those were a lot of the stories where like parents would like clean the house and then be like, okay, well, we cleaned for, our son, so now you need to clean the house the next week. And they were like, first of all, your son does fuck all day.
Right.
And you came in and cleaned everything for him. Now you're like expecting me to do the same thing. Like, he doesn't do that, right? So like, back to the expectations, we're just way off. Definitely not on the same page.
Right.
Another story takes place in West Virginia, which I don't know if that's relevant, but maybe if somebody's listening from West Virginia, they can tell us whether it's relevant or not. But apparently their roommate would get drunk and catch what they call a mess of squirrels. So they would catch squirrels and they would bring them inside the apartment like area. And then they would put them like in a cage or something. And when they would open it up so the roommate would literally wake up the next morning. They would have to help each other like round up these squirrels, and like the squirrels would be running around the apartment, like knocking shit over. And like, so that was story number 3, which was really funny. Story number 4, this is the last story, was about, so this was kind of wild. I will just preface it with that. This person had a roommate that would hack into their computer.
What?
And send like rude emails to like their boss, and send rude emails to like friends, and like send crazy things, like try to like mess up their grades, like sent weird stuff to their professors. It was wild. And so apparently like the person didn't find out until like way later. Like they found out like a year later that like that was them. They thought it was like some random hacker like trying to like get into their bank account, but it was literally their roommate trying to like sabotage their life. So I say all this to say that you think you might have had a bad roommate experience, but I can tell you this kind of took the cake. This was pretty bad. I mean, someone literally trying to like sabotage your life. Like, you think that like your computer's hacked, and it's actually just your roommate that like logged into your accounts and is like fucking you up. So that was the conclusion.
So we aren't doing it completely wrong. So me wanting my own towel is not the craziest thing, is what you're saying.
Exactly. So bringing it full circle, Morgan can have all the fresh towels she wants. She's entitled to that. I will say that I know I've done it wrong way too many times. I do think that with like food and things like that, I think it just really depends on you as a person. If you don't like sharing your things, you need to know that going into the situation with the person. But also, I think that we need to be able to like analyze ourselves as well and think about, what are we doing to like make the situation better, right? Open communication was one of the like top things for like just having open communication and being honest. It's like, hey, I noticed that you were eating my cheese, just to let you don't like when people touch my food. So, you know, if you could not do that, that'd be great, right? Simple as that. And I think that I was probably naked a lot more than Morgan wanted. But that was just something that, yeah, she's nodding in agreement. But that was just something that for me,
Ryann loves
I don't care. I'm naked all the time.
We haven't lived together in years, and she lives across the country now. That's true. I still saw her naked the other day. So it doesn't end.
That's so true. It doesn't. Yeah,
time and space, right? She just enjoys it, and we FaceTime, 95% of the time. So, when she wants to do a fashion show with all her new online orders, I'm gonna see some bush. I've just accepted that in my life.
So there you have it. Morgan has accepted my bush into her life. So we can,
as my Lord and Savior. You could start a cult. Look at you. I'm sucked in. I'm falling for it. We've already proven the whole from the top of the show, we've come full circle.
Yes, I love that. We've come full triangle because my bush is a triangle.
Fancy.
But anyways, yeah, I know. But anyways, thank you so much for being on the episode with me. This was a struggle to get through, not just because we were outing each other, but also because, we just have a lot of experience and we've been through so much together. And so it's refreshing that we can talk about it honestly, because the reality is that a lot of times you end up just moving and parting ways, and like, maybe I'll never see you again. And sometimes it's hopefully I'll never see you again.
Right.
So yeah. thanks for coming on this wild ride with us. Don't catch squirrels and like leave them in your house. Nobody wants that.
And put it in the roommate agreement, you know?
Oh, there you go.
Don't just sneak that up on someone.
Yeah. We need a clause for squirrel catching that needs to be discussed thoroughly.
I told you only on Thursdays. Like, what are we going to say about that? I just think that's really elaborate, you know?
It is.
That's quite an elaborate plan for a drunk person to,
right.
You know,
yeah, very, very complex. That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Wild, man.
And he had a cage. Ready. So apparently, like I said, this might be a West Virginia thing. I don't know. But anyways, don't forget, as always, to follow us on Instagram at Wrong the Podcast. We will be posting more discussion topics and honestly just keeping you up to date on all things wrong. Thank you so much to our wonderful interpreters for sticking it out with us throughout the show. Access provided by ProBonoASL. And feel free to follow us on any podcast platform. Feel free to rate and subscribe if you would like to. And join us on YouTube for the visual conversation. It has been a pleasure, Morgan, hanging out with you through all of the bullshit. And we will see you all on our next episode. Have a wonderful night.